Nairobi Members Club. Perhaps you can describe the club as you walk through the front doors of it. What do you see?
The Nairobi Club, you basically drive through the gate, then you're in you arrive at the main building. At the main building there is usually a book where you sign in members if you have members. On the one side is the club bar. As you open through to the doors there is the main lounge, and off to the side of that there is the dining room. And then on the outside again of that main lounge you have an open terrace with the sports fields then out in front of you.
And club rules concerning making phone calls inside the building?
Your Honours, there are very clear rules about mobile phone use in the club. There is a fine of 1,000 shillings if your phone rings, and a second time if your phone rings. There are also other penalties which can even include suspension from the club if you operate a mobile phone within the premises of the club.
And the idea of four mungiki walking in without hindrance into the club and making their way into the members' dining room?
The only way any mungiki or any person for that matter would walk into the front door is if they were members.
Any known mungiki as members of the club?
I know no member of the club who has professed to be a mungiki member.
So did this take place on the 3rd of January 2008, that you with a group of prominent business people, political people, including Ambassador Muthara, have a discussion in the members' dining room with a group of mungiki?
No, Your Honours, that is completely out of the question. There was never such a meeting with myself, Ambassador Muthara, Saitoti, with any mungiki. In fact, I've never been to that club with either Ambassador Muthara or Professor Saitoti for that matter.
At that time, on the 3rd of January 2008, Professor Saitoti and yourself being together at such an occasion, would that have happened?
Your Honor, that would not have happened. That definitely would not have happened. Like I said when I was giving an earlier explanation, we had our own challenges at the time because of the fact that, especially when it came to the parliamentary and the civic elections, we had our own challenges with different members vying for different seats, and there was a feeling in some areas that the coming members who had come in were costing the seats of people who had already been in government with President Kibaki.
And just finally, on the 27th of January 2008, State House, Nairobi, this is the day of the Naivasha conflict. Were you present with Mungiki at State House on that day, on the day of the Naivasha attack?
Your Honours, I was not present at State House on that day with Mungiki, and like I had said earlier, Your Honours, I have not been to State House with any group of Mungiki ever. I have never been to the premises of State House with Mungiki, not on the 27th, not on any other day.
Let's move to another allegation that they made, that millions of shillings in cash were being provided to these people. One passage they say 30 million shillings was provided, 3 million shillings here, 3 million shillings there, on several occasions. I think you know the allegations. Did that ever happen?
Your Honours, that never happened. The allegations are that I was there on the 30th with 3 million shillings each to give to 30 people, which would have amounted to over 100 million shillings. Anybody who knows the Kenyan currency knows that is the equivalent of quite a number of suitcases. And Your Honours, you can imagine coming from KICC, where I came from direct, with 4 or 5 large suitcases filled with currency. Definitely, within the search at the gate or the security, somebody would have definitely seen how would I have carried that kind of money on my person. It is completely ludicrous, Your Honour.
I don't know whether the judges know this, but what's the largest denomination note in Kenyan shillings?
Largest denomination note is 1,000 shillings.
Well, we can do the maths with 30 million. But
100 million.
yeah. And that's all I'll ask about that. I'd like to go back now, because the prosecution have alleged as part of their case that you're the commander of the Mungiki. What's your comment upon that?
Your Honours, that is not true. To be a commander or anything in Mungiki, I would first of all have to be a member. And I have never been a member of Mungiki.
Can I just ask you now about the political relationship, if there was one, in the year 2002? That's when you challenged for the presidential elections. Is it right that the Mungiki backed you as a candidate in that election?
It is true to say that they did have a number of press conferences where they said that they were backing my candidacy for presidency, but Your Honours, that was never solicited for, and I never requested nor asked for their support in my political campaign.
Since that period of 2002, did you have a close personal relationship with the Mungiki?
Your Honours, I have never had a close personal relationship with Mungiki. Never.
Is it correct, or sorry, I'll withdraw that. In relation to the Mungiki, have you ever denounced them and not supported them in public?
Yes, Your Honour, I have. Severally, from the time they burnt my own effigy to the time when they even came out and supported. I also rejected and denounced them again at that stage. The time when there was also an involvement when they had a clash with other rival gangs in Nairobi, when myself and several politicians also denounced them. We have numerous times, I can cite, Your Honors, where I have denounced the activities of Mungiki in my political career.
And in the year 2007, for the election, did you forge a relationship with them so that they would back you?
Your Honors, I did not forge any relationship with them to back me in 2007. First and foremost, I was neither a candidate for the presidency in 2007. And secondly, like I said, in joining Kibaki's own campaign, the bulk of the support of our party, KANU, was outside the central region of Kenya. And hence, even in participating in the campaign, the areas that were the key focus of myself and the team were the areas where traditionally KANU had support, and those were outside the central region of Kenya. So I did not need, even for the sake of the presidential campaign, to have any contact or link with Mungiki whatsoever.
Now, did you task a former KANU MP as a responsible commander for the recruitment, mobilization and payment of pro-PN youth to participate in retaliatory attacks in Naivasha and Nakuru from the officers belonging to KANU?
I have never, Your Honors, tasked any person to mobilize or recruit Mungiki for any activity whatsoever.
The allegation from the prosecution that we heard was that people were turning pro-PNU youth, making them all adopt the Mungiki creed, so to speak, and be converted to it, initiated into it. Was that anything to do with you, if that took place?
Your Honors, I am not aware of any attempt to turn pro-PNU youth into Mungiki. Like I said, the PNU and KANU itself was operating largely outside of central Kenya. And it is like to say that all the youth who were supporting the presidential election of Mwai Kibaki were Kikuyus, which is far from the truth, because President Kibaki did get support and did have supporters who were youth from very many parts of the country. So that would in itself not be a possibility. I believe the leader of the presidential youth campaign himself did not come from central Kenya. I think he was from the Kamba region. So I see no possibility or connection of PNU supporters being turned into Mungiki supporters, or being recruited into Mungiki for that matter.
The prosecution have put forward a body called Pro-PNU Youth, after the election as being an entity in existence that was mobilized for retaliatory and revenge attacks. Was there such an entity as Pro-PNU Youth?
Your Honors, like I said earlier, the entity that I was aware of was not called Pro-PNU Youth. The entity that I was aware of, that our own youth leader joined when we formed that coalition to support President Kibaki, was the Kibaki Tena group. I am not aware of any other youth grouping that was central to President Kibaki's re-election bid.
Did you create a network of local pro-PNU government officials, businessmen, local politicians, to provide funding, transport, accommodation, uniforms, weapons, logistical support to the Mungiki and pro-PNU youth to carry out coordinated attacks?
Your Honours, I think I need to repeat again, first and foremost, when we joined the presidential election bid of Mwai Kibaki, we joined as KANU, and hence we retained our structures as KANU. Therefore, we did not have any pro-PNU or pro-this. We had Kibaki supporters who were supporting Kibaki's presidential re-election campaign, and we had supporters of our own candidates for parliamentary and civic seats throughout the country. So that was the focus that we had. So we could not now convert that. Like I said, KANU was a party that, and this is borne testimony by the fact that even in the 2007 elections, the majority of seats that we won were outside of central Kenya. That is what we brought to President Kibaki's campaign. Parliamentary seats and presidential votes largely outside of central Kenya.
Fundraising, did you take part in meetings where prominent people, including yourself, were doing fundraising for purposes of raising money to, or just have meetings, forget the money, either way, to plan revenge and retaliatory attacks on the other ethnic groups believed to be responsible for violence against PNU people?
Your Honours, I did not participate in any fundraising for any retaliatory actions anywhere. But indeed, Your Honour, I did participate in a number of fundraising activities to assist those who were the victims of the post-election violence. Your Honours, at the time, on the screens, on TV, from phone calls from friends that we had in those regions, the extent of the humanitarian crisis was such that it behoved anybody who had any sympathy, who had any regard for human life, to do what they could to assist those people. And the first such fundraiser I attended was a fundraiser that I put together my own constituents, who raised both money, food and clothing to assist those people. I attended another one where again funds, food and clothing were also contributed again to assist the very same victims. And the last major one I can recall attending was one that was organized by the President himself to raise nationally, again, funds to assist those who had been adversely affected by the post-election violence. This is something I have done over my period of life as a politician and even before I joined politics, and it is something that I will continue to do, Your Honor, because I believe it behoves oneself as a citizen and as a leader to do that which they can in such circumstances.
I'd like you now to look at a video we played earlier in the proceedings. It's EVD PT D13 00130, and there's a transcript at EVD PT D13 00391.
Mtu ambaye anafukuzwa kwa sababu yule ambaye atataka kubaki, na mimi nimesema kwa ukweli, na bwana DC hakikishe ya kwamba kila shamba Kila shamba hapa iko na askari ya kutosha, ndio wale ambao wataona ya kwamba watataka kubaki waweze kubaki wakiwa na usalama.
First of all, could you describe what that scene was? What was happening there?
What was going on was after, towards the end, can't remember the exact date, but it was towards the end of January, the beginning of February, when people, especially from Central Kenya, especially the Kikuyu, angered by what has been or had been going on in the Rift Valley. There were events where people had begun to retaliate. And so what we have done is, together with other members of Parliament, other colleagues in Parliament, from across the divide, including even members from the ODM party, we put ourselves together in a group that was multi-ethnic to go around, especially in this particular case. We were at Tigoni, where there were many tea farms where people from outside that area were working, to go first and foremost to calm the people and to stop them from retaliatory attacks, but also to reassure those workers that they were secure and they would be protected and they did not have to leave those particular areas, and they could continue working and resume life as normal. So this was just one of those meetings that we went to. This was now at Tigoni police station, where a number of workers had camped, fearing for their lives.
We saw a long clip yesterday at a place called Kikuyu, and you were addressing a crowd there. Can you tell the court what that particular scene was and why you were there?
Your Honours, I was on that particular day in my office. I had just been appointed a few weeks back as the Minister for Local Government. And as I was doing my normal office work at the time, I was called and informed that there was a major problem brewing in Kikuyu, and if I could join other members of Parliament to go and assist in cooling and calming tempers. So I left the office and proceeded to Kikuyu Township, where the problem was, and we proceeded to address the large crowds of youth who were there, and at the time they were trying to enter the Kikuyu police station, where a number of IDPs or let's say non-residents from that particular area were camped. So we were trying to cool them and to calm them and to tell them that that is not the way to seek justice, and to tell them to give the government time, and that the rule of law should be followed, and that justice would be eventually taken on those who were inflicting pain on their own relatives. But the way forward was definitely not to start stopping vehicles and pulling out passengers or attacking people and trying to revenge for themselves. So we were really just trying to calm the people, and I think we succeeded in doing so on that particular occasion. And it was from there that we began now doing the tours to other areas, equally to call for calm and restraint, and to allow the government machinery to take action on those who had aggrieved them, as opposed to them taking what we call at home mob justice, because that we felt was only going to make the situation worse.
You referred there to justice and the rule of law. At that time, did you think justice and the rule of law would bring you to the International Criminal Court in The Hague?
No, I I definitely did not, because everything that we did at that time was to first and foremost assist those who had been victimized. Secondly was when, as a result of the growing anger amongst supporters of the PNU, we went out to calm them and to prevent them from doing anything that is retaliatory in nature, and actually appeal to them to allow the government and to allow proper procedure to get justice for them, which we were assuring them would eventually happen. Little did I know that that would mean myself being brought to the International Criminal Court.
Did you have a plan with Ambassador Muthara and General Ali that was conceived to bring retaliatory and revenge attacks on people in Naivasha and Nakuru?
No, Your Honors, I never had any such plan. We never met, we never discussed it, we never conferred on it, we never had any meeting at all, being the three of us, least of all to discuss anything to do with retaliation or revenge attacks on anybody.
Thank you very much. Wait there, please.
You finished, Mr. K? Thank you very much. Mr. Kenyatta, are you at ease? Do you think you can proceed immediately with the questioning on behalf of the Office of the Prosecutor?
That will be fine, Madam President.
Yes, there is 1 hour more till the break, which is exactly the time allocated to the team of the Prosecutor. Mr. Prosecutor, the floor is over to you.
Your Honor. Mr. Kenyatta, your defense in his argument, his opening, mentioned that the consideration is Mr. Odinga was responsible for the crimes in the post-electoral violence. I'd like to take this opportunity, if you can explain to us if you consider is politically responsible or also criminal responsible, in the sense that Mr. Odinga provide weapons or to order to commit crimes.
Your Honors, I will not say that he was criminally responsible because I have no evidence of him supplying arms. But Your Honor, I will say that indeed he has political responsibility, because had he gone out much earlier and first and foremost not had some of the inflammatory remarks that were being made at various press conferences that I had mentioned earlier, claiming that rigging was taking place, had he agreed to follow proper due process and gone to court as opposed to calling for mass action during the time, the violence would not have occurred. And lastly, Your Honor, had he, when the violence broke out in various parts of the country, used his own political voice to go to his supporters and to tell them to stop the violence, I don't believe the violence would have reached the level and the magnitude of over 600,000 Kenyans being displaced. So, politically, yes, I would say he was involved. Criminally, Madam President, I have no evidence of him organizing weapons.
Thank you. Do you feel do you know who were the Pentagon in the ODM?
Yes.
Can you mention them?
The Pentagon, I think, was headed by the Honorable Raila Odinga. There was also Mr. Nyaga was one member. Mr. Balala, I believe, was another member. I believe Charity Ngilu was a member. I believe the Honorable Ruto was a member.
Were they opposing to Mr. Odinga incitation to violence or not?
Madam President, I did not hear that question. I didn't understand.
The question is, if I understand your difference between political responsibility and criminal responsibility of Mr. Odinga, the question now is going to the second level. These other political leaders of the ODM are similar to Mr. Odinga or are different?
Well, well, at the end of the day, I won't call them similar or different. I believe that he who bears responsibility is he who is the leader, and the leader was Raila Odinga. He was the leader. He is the one who could have given direction or said to the others, because he was ultimately the party leader, the flag bearer.
Thank you. So he was a political leader, you say, but do you know if the other members of the ODM leadership were involved themselves in planning attacks, in providing weapons, including Mr. Ruto?
Madam President, I have no evidence once again of any planning activities. What I do know is that some of the strong words that were being used during the campaign period, some of the issues that were being raised when the ballots were being counted and just before with regard to rigging, all these contributed towards raising tensions and temperatures which ultimately, I believe, were the cause of the violence that we witnessed and the displacement that we saw.
In your answer to your defense, you say you were not aware of a plot to rig elections. Can you be more specific? Do you know now if there was a plot to rig the elections?
Madam President, I said I was not aware of any plot to rig the elections of 2007 by President Kibaki, and furthermore, since then, a commission of inquiry was put together under the able leadership, and it was an international commission under the able leadership of Justice Kriegler from South Africa, and that commission, which is the only report I can go by, clearly indicated that whereas there may have been some irregularities on both sides, there was definitely no evidence of any rigging, especially at the National Tallying Center where I was at KICC. That is what I can go by.
Thank you. You say that to stop retaliation, you were talking about the need to go to court. And similar comment you did publicly after the elections were announced in advising the ODM to go to court. Do you think the court in Kenya can do justice in these cases?
I believe so. It is not the first time that we had contested elections. We had contested elections in 1992, where the losers who felt aggrieved went to court. We had a similar situation in 1997, where the losers again went to court. And I believe that the first call of justice for one who believes in the rule of law should be the courts. And thereafter, if you feel you are still aggrieved, there are still many other avenues that are open to you without necessarily resorting to violence or destruction.
Yes. Do you think in Kenya there are many people who perceive the court will be ineffective against political leaders?
Yes, there is a perception that the courts may be perceived as being ineffective, but that is one of the main reasons also why the fact that the courts themselves require reform or review, I don't believe is justification, Madam President, to resort to violent means. Ultimately, violence does not help any particular situation, whether you're aggrieved or not. So ultimately, that is why we said, it is not the courts, let us also engage in dialogue to find how we can actually find a way forward.
I agree with the comment on the need to go to the court. The problem is how you persuade people to go to court when the people perceive the court will be ineffective against leaders. So how you did it, how you persuade them?
Your Honors, for me it is not a question of persuading the people. It is a question of the leaders themselves accepting that we need to live in peace, accepting that certain decisions can have major consequences on lives, can have major consequences on property, and consequently not to take any action and to appeal to your supporters not to take any action that may be seen or may result in the loss of life, or that may result in the loss of property. So ultimately, it was the onus, and I still maintain that particular position, it is still the onus of the leaders to appeal to their members to accept that position. I do remember in 1992, where again in a very, very tight election between President Moi and Kenneth Matiba, it was a very close election. Again, I think in due respect of what a call by him would have resulted in at the time, he chose the path fully well knowing that maybe he may not get the justice through court, but at the end of the day, life is much more important than whatever position you are seeking to fill.
Can you describe to the court when this position to try to reach a common agreement between the PNU and the ODM started and how it was triggered?
Madam President, what I know is that soon after the general election results, especially the presidential elections, were announced, we who were affiliated with President Kibaki, like I said, I was a member of KANU. I had about 18-20 members of parliament who were elected with me at the same time on a KANU ticket. There were PNU members, there were NAC Kenya members, there were Ford Kenya members. We immediately began trying to form a coalition, first and foremost of the supporters of President Kibaki, to be able to go to parliament. It was at that time that ODM Kenya, who also had a presidential candidate, also joined President Kibaki's team. And it was at that stage, once we had consolidated also on our side, I think there were already ongoing discussions in government. I was not a member of government at that time, trying to reach out. We ourselves as political leaders held a number of press conferences where again we appealed to the ODM that let us have dialogue. If you feel there might not be justice, let's have dialogue amongst ourselves. I remember clearly myself in one particular interview, Madam President, me calling and saying, well, let us look at it from a different perspective. President Kibaki has won the presidency. ODM clearly has a majority in parliament. It therefore means that one way or another, President Kibaki cannot rule without having the support of parliament. It is a perfect opportunity for dialogue. And that we started very early in January.
All these efforts were in the parliament. They were not connected with the leader of the PNU or the top leader of the government?
Madam President, I didn't understand that question. I didn't quite hear it.
If these efforts, these negotiations you were just involved with parliamentarians, or were you also discussing this idea with members of the government or the PNU?
Madam President, at that time, like I'm saying, I was the leader of KANU. We were having discussions as political leaders, because if you take Ford Kenya, for example, who are also participating in those discussions, the then chairman of Ford Kenya, who was Ocampo, had lost his parliamentary seat, but he was participating in those discussions, calling again for and saying that there was need for dialogue. But in terms of government, there were representations from also members of PNU who were also elected. So at that level, at the political leadership level, is where we were discussing and negotiating.
Can you identify the member of the PNU discussing with you?
We had with us was myself, and in KANU I had a number of KANU leaders, other KANU leaders with me. There was Musikari Kombo, There was Eugene Wamalwa, who was amongst them from Ford, Kenya. There was ODM Kenya, there was the vice president who had entered at that time, and the Minister for Justice now, who is Mutula Kilonzo. From PNU, there was people like Amos Kimunya, who was also there. From NAC Kenya, there were people like Martha Karua, who were also part and parcel of the discussion. So it was a big group.
When you start, can you inform the court when you start to be member of the cabinet?
I became a member of the cabinet. I think the cabinet was sworn in on the 10th of January, if I'm not wrong.
And when you discussed your participation in the cabinet, and with whom?
Madam President, under the constitution that we had then, the cabinet was not something to be discussed. It was the president's prerogative to appoint cabinet ministers. So it was not a subject of discussion. It was all of us waiting to know who would be appointed in the new cabinet. Our system is one where it is the president who appoints and dismisses cabinet ministers. So there was no question of a discussion as to who would be in government and who would not be in government.
Who, in the name of Mr. President Kibaki, called you to inform you were appointed minister?
Madam President, I was not called by anybody. The announcement was made on national TV and radio. He made a live broadcast from State House announcing 10 members of his cabinet, and I was one of them.
So you inform us that you learn about your membership in the cabinet through TV?
Absolutely correct.
And how to learn how to go to the swearing ceremony, with whom you discuss details to go to the ceremony?
Madam President, once you have been nominated to a position, you are then informed by the cabinet office as to when the swearing-in ceremony will take place, where and what time.
Who informed you?
I think I was informed at the time by Mr. Mwale, who was, I believe, the administrative secretary.
Reporting to whom?
Mr. Mwale would report to Ambassador Mudaura.
Ah, thank you. Going to the meetings, after your appointment in the cabinet, did you have discussion with the government on how to manage this conflict?
Madam President, on the appointment of the cabinet, yes, when the cabinet first met, there were discussions on how to deal with the situation as it was in the country at the time. Yes, the situation of the post-election violence was discussed.
Who was involved in those discussions?
All members who were of the cabinet at the time.
All together?
All together.
And as in your role, you have any connection with security problems?
I was appointed, Your Honors, as the Minister for Local Government. I was not appointed in charge of any of the security organs, so I was not in charge of any of the security organs.
As local government, you have to be liaising with the local police?
Madam President, I think the prosecutor does not understand our system. We, local governments, do not have police. We only have one police force in Kenya, the National Police Force. There is no other police force.
You were connected with the security committees?
No, I was not connected with the security committees.
So we have no information about the violence in detail?
Well, the details, no, except what we were seeing on TV, what was reported to us in cabinet. But in terms of direct involvement, there was no direct involvement because my ministry did not have anything to do with security operations.
Just to clarify some of the issues you mentioned the Yaya Center is like a shopping center, but is the shopping center part of a bigger complex, or they are building connected with it, with offices and other type of buildings?
It is a shopping complex. That's what I know, yeah.
Including offices?
I've not been to any offices, I've just been to the shopping area, so I don't know if offices are there.
Okay, but the Yaya Center includes a complex?
Yes.
Bigger than the shopping. Thank you. And another question about the possibility to have meetings. You explained to the court how difficult, how tight control, of course, of the State House is. But has someone like with the authority like Mr. Musaura, for instance, can authorize a person to go in the State House?
Your Honor, based on my experience as a cabinet minister, the head of public service cannot authorize anybody to enter State House. The person who has the authority is either the President himself or the State House Controller, and that is based on my own experience as a cabinet minister and somebody who has also grown up in that building at one stage.
But using the President Kibaki called the guards to inform who can go and who cannot?
Your Honor, no. It is the State House Controller who informs the head of security who is coming and with whom and at what time.
Okay. Is the State House Controller reported to Mr. Musaura?
Your Honor, the State House Controller reports to the President.
It's not lane of responsibility with Mr. Musaura as a Secretary General of the Cabinet.
Your Honor, the State House Controller reports directly to the President.
Okay. There were information that you were distributing 100 million shillings in one day. Do you have enough money to distribute this amount?
I wish I did have that amount of money. I would be a very happy person, Madam President.
So you say you cannot this money? You
to distribute around in cash? No, Madam President, I don't have.
Can you describe to the court the amount of your patrimony?
Madam President, I did not understand what he's just asked.
Just to understand your previous answer, can you describe to the court the entirety of your patrimony? How much money you have?
Madam President, I am not saying I am a poor person.
This goes a little bit too far, Mr. Prosecutor.
But, Madam President, we understand that the person is very wealthy, and he just said he has not enough money to provide 100 millions. So I like, he say he wished to have this money. So I'd like to clarify, just if 100 million shillings are more than his patrimony or not.
Mr. Kenyatta said that he doesn't have in cash.
No, but
absolutely correct.
He said both. He said both. Yes. Can you, maybe you clarify. You can pay 100 million shillings but not in cash. That's your point.
Madam President, wealth is something that is you can't necessarily say is countable in cash. You can say I'm wealthy because I may have assets, but that asset does not mean I have the ability to carry around cash of that kind of amount, Madam President.
Okay. Give me a second. Mr. Kenyatta.
Mr. Ocampo, just the interpreters always ask for a pause after the answer and a little bit slower. Thank you.
I will try. Mr. Kenyatta, do you know the good relation between PNU and Mungikis?
Madam President, I didn't understand what the question was.
If there is kind of, if the Mungikis supported in some occasion the PNU.
Madam President, I wish to clarify once again. I am the chairman of KANU, not the chairman of PNU.
Yeah.
That question should be answered by the PNU members. All I can say is that we do not have a close relationship between KANU and the Mungiki.
No, but I'm sorry. I'm asking you if, according to your knowledge, the Mungiki were supporting, in some occasion, the PNU. Maybe you don't know, but you should answer me, or the court.
Madam President, I'm not aware of Mungiki supporting the PNU.
Okay. You know a man called Peter Kawanja?
Yes, Yes, Madam President, I do know of a man called Peter Kagwanja.
Do you know what he's doing? Is he working for you as advisor?
Madam President, Peter Kagwanja does not work for me, but he does work for the PNU coalition, but he does not work for KANU.
Can you explain, can you describe his role?
Madam President, other than saying he is an advisor, I cannot explain his current role because I'm not his employer, so I don't know his exact role.
Okay, I will request the chamber to show EVD PT OTP 00158. It's a report published by Peter Kagwanja in African Affairs entitled Power to Uhuru, Your Identity and Generational Politics in Kenya 2002 Elections.
The court officer, please display.
Yeah, and I would just like the prosecutor to confirm the confidentiality
EVD?
level of this.
No, it's
document.
public. It's public.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you know this article, Mr. Kenyatta?
I know the article from the perspective that is one of the documents that was been disclosed to my defense.
Can we show the page 59? And I will read slowly. Mr. Kagwanja, the current advisor of PNU, say, unable to play the ethnic card, KANU turned to generational politics, positioning young Uhuru against elderly Kibaki and tightening its patron-client relations with the predominantly Kikuyu Mungiki movement. And the question is, did you tighten relations between Mungiki and KANU?
Madam President, we did not.
I didn't answer. Do you answer?
I answered.
Can
You repeat your answer.
Madam President, I did not.
Okay. On page 63, Kagwanja say that John Nyinga Maina, the leader of the Mungiki, announced that the Mungiki will support Mr. Kenyatta. How did support materialize?
Madam President, I think the best person to answer that is the author of the article, who claims that that was what happened. I am not aware of that, except what I had said earlier, Madam President, that there was public declarations by members of Mungiki that they support my candidature, and as I said, that was unsolicited support. So I have nothing else to add to that. Maybe Professor Kagwanja can, he is the author of the article, maybe he would be better placed to tell me how he thinks that was happening.
As you say it was unsolicited, but you never say they not provided. So the question is, did they provide unsolicited support to your candidacy?
Madam President,
As you're aware, maybe you're not aware.
Madam President, they did not provide any support because, as has also been shown in parts of my own defense, even when they tried to get tickets on my Majenga. We rejected people like Ndurawa Arwenge because we did not, as a party, want to be associated with them. So, as far as I'm concerned, it was unsolicited support. We never saw the support, and we continued with our campaign without generally having their support.
Can you give me a reason? Because in the same page, Mr. Kagwanja says that Uhuru Kenyatta himself swung between publicly distancing his campaign from Mungiki acts of terror and covertly soliciting Mungiki support, arguing that anybody had the freedom to support whoever he wanted. So, can you give us any reason why Professor Peter Kagwanja submit this idea that you covertly solicited the Mungiki support that you openly rejected?
Madam President, once again, I have no idea. This is a public document that he has published himself. I have no idea what his sources are, and I still maintain that he would be the best person who is best placed to say why he believes so, because this is his opinion, and he definitely did not interview me when he was doing the article, so I cannot say more than that.
Can you confirm a fact? Because on page 64, Mr. Kagwanja said that in August 2002, Ndurua Warunje said on television that you, Mr. Kenyatta, were a member of the Mungiki. Did that happen? Did Mr. Warunje say that?
I don't recall him saying that, but I have seen as part of the testimony that there are claims that certain individuals have said that I am a member of Mungiki. Now, whether that was said in a public forum or in what forum, I'm not sure. All I can say is that that is his claim, but my position, Madam President, is very clear. I have never been a member of Mungiki.
You effectively denied, according with this information, denied this accusation. But it was 3 months later. You remember the denial, and you remember what you were thinking in order to decide to deny or not to deny this information?
Madam President, I did not hear that.
Can you repeat?
Would you explain, Mr. Prosecutor, again your question?
Yeah.
The suspect didn't get.
Our information is that you deny. 3 months later, our information that you deny this assessment that you were part of the Mungiki done by Mr. Ndurua Warunje. The question is, you remember this denial, and you remember the process that you took to decide to go public and deny this.
Madam President, like I said, I did not see what he's referring to as the TV program. I didn't see it. But I do know, I think, as I said in earlier testimony, that there was a series of clashes that happened. I can't remember what year. And it came to our attention, and when we were aware, we publicly denounced Mungiki. But to say that I publicly denounced this particular one, I may, and I do not recall having seen Warunge on TV. He may have said it, but it could have skipped my attention. I didn't see that particular one. But any circumstance where it has come up and it has been brought to my attention, and or an issue has come up to do with Mungiki that has come to my attention, I have always publicly condemned and stated that I have no association whatsoever with Mungiki.
Yes, but Mr. Peter Kagwanja say that you normally do that. You publicly distance yourself from the Mungiki, but covertly request their support. And because Peter Kagwanja is advisor of your movement, of your activities. Can you explain to us if you discussed this issue with him?
Madam President, let us be clear. If, as the prosecutor is saying, that at the time Professor Kagwanja was advising the NAC government at the time, I was in the opposition, so he was not advising me, and we were not having any discussions. I know him now, when we have supported and joined President Kibaki's government, as an advisor to PNU, but we have never discussed with him any issues to do with Mungiki. So once again, Madam Speaker, the person who is best placed to answer that question is Professor Kagwanja.
Yeah. Peter Kagwanja is today working for you, so it's more complicated.
So Madam President, Professor Kagwanja does not work for me. I will wish to repeat for the prosecutor's sake one more time that I belong to the Kenya African National Union that supports President Kibaki. Professor Kagwanja works for the Party of National Union. That isn't my party. My party is KANU. So he doesn't work for me, but I do know him as an advisor of the Party of National Unity.
Do you know, Mr. Kenyatta, that the National Security Intelligence Service produced a report saying a former member of the parliament, a member of your party, was one of the one organizing the attacks of the Mungiki that we are investigating in this case?
Madam President, I am not aware, because I was not privy to any reports by National Security Intelligence. So I'm not aware of that report.
Can we go for a minute for a closed session to provide the name of the individual?
Of course. Or to a private session?
Sorry?
To a private session
Yes.
will be fine. Yes. Mr. Court Officer, please, let us switch into a private session.
Thousands of people travel hundreds of kilometers in search of the miracle broth of Loliondo, Tanzania. Many of them have the HIV infection, turning up here in the belief that they will be healed of this incurable disease.
Sasa mwaka huu tulipoanza kusikia mambo ya babu ndio tukaongea na mzee wangu tukasema jamani twende tujaribu huko kama kweli Mungu atatuponyesha.
But did it really work? Starting Tuesday, we revisit the people living with the HIV virus who made this pilgrimage.
Tulitoka hapa siku ya Jumapili. Kutoka Jumapili turudi hapa Jumapili tena. Kama wiki moja na kitu.
To investigate the other side of its much debated healing power.
Nilipimwa juzi wakati nikiacha kutumia hizo dawa hizo wiki 6. Nikakuta niko hivyo niko na virusi.
There is nothing yet scientifically proven about the efficacy of the herb, and the tests were still running in Tanzania and elsewhere in the world, because it has brought a lot of attention and many people are interested.
And reveal the fate of those who abandoned their antiretrovirals in the belief that they were healed.
Sababu nangu akaja nyumbani hakutumia dawa yote. Tokea mwezi wa 6 na tukakaa na yeye mwezi wa 7, 8, wa 9 na akaungua. Alikufa mwendo wa saa 3:30 usiku.
We crossed the border into Tanzania to meet Mzee Babu himself and get his perspective on his self-declared wonder broth.
Lazima niwaambie mkapime kwa sababu watathibitishaje kwamba amepona. Lazima wapime.
Lakini pia waambie pia madawa yako nao endelee na kama wanao.
Sasa hiyo ni hali ya mtu, lakini mimi naambia endelee. Umesikia hata pale nikitamka siri si marufuku kutumia dawa.
Loliondo's Wonder Broth, The Aftermath, starts this Tuesday on The Big Story at 9 p.m. only on K24.
DSTV is all about more. More action, more stars, more entertainment, plus more bouquet options to suit every pocket and viewing taste. Yep, you can subscribe to unbelievable entertainment from only 925 shillings per month. And with Select Sport now on the DSTV Access, Family and Compact Bouquets, the most competitive soccer leagues in the world are at your fingertips.
I want more.
Hell yeah. And what's more, our premium bouquet offers more than ever before. Over 90 incredible channels with more for everyone. And the biggest selection of HD channels for more blow-you-away viewing. So if it's more you want, look no further than DSTV. So much more affordable.
Mount Kenya General Hardware is a one-stop shop for all hardware and building materials. We have a wide range of products, which include steel security doors, high-density fiber doors, locks, dining cabinets, jacuzzis, closed-couple toilets, shower cubicles, PVC ceilings, tiles, chandeliers, and many more, all at competitive prices. We are located at Gikomba near Pumwani Road. We also offer free transport within Nairobi.
Our trip to Mushadha was to meet with a group of young men, all aged between 15 and 28 years, many of whom at this age are yearning for quality advice and mentorship. But unlike other young men in well-up families, all privileged to have male figures to mentor them as they grow up, this special group of young people from this area is different.
Kuna mtu wa kukwambia yeye. Naona mzazi akikuongelesha, naona yani haina haja. Wazazi wengi wengine walijiingilia kwa pombe, sasa uliacha ukiwa pekee. Sasa hii maisha inakuwa ni yako pekee, unaenda kujitafutia chakula hivyo.
Preska hii venye iko, yani ni venye tu hasu kwako. Tikoja mtu akuja kukumenta hapo uwezi pata. Ni hasu kivyako.
Role model wetu wanakuwa walevi, hakuna venye wanaweza tusaidia.
As a result, many of them claim they have dropped out of school due to lack of fees or lack of mentorship and thus indulging in beer and drugs at an early age.
Tulimaliza study, hiyo ilikuwa mwisho.
At the same time, you are a member, you are Deputy Prime Minister of this coalition in which you are with the PNU. How close are you with the PNU? Is it just occasional relation? Will it be permanent relation? Can you explain to us that?
Well, Madam President, like I said, we are a distinct party, KANU. The PNU coalition, as it is called, is a party composed of the PNU party itself, KANU, Ford Kenya, ODM Kenya, NAG Kenya, amongst many other parties.
All this is a coalition?
It is a coalition.
But you belong to the KANU?
I belong to KANU.
Can you give any reason to understand this connection between Mungiki and the violence? Because this information about the Mungikis involved came from official sources. The information about the member of your party in the preparation of these attacks came from official sources. And the only link, the only evidence we have connecting the Mungikis with this coalition is through you. We have no other link between the Mungiki or PNU or others. Can you explain to us a different reason? Because the fact that the Mungiki were involved in the attack is official. It's coming from official documents. The issue is our theory, our evidence show that you were calling the Mungiki, that you were organizing them, you were financing them. But maybe this is a chance for you to explain to us, no, it's a different person who did that. Because the fact is that the Mungiki were involved in attacks. The question is a different person than you who organized this?
question range with, could we please ask the prosecutor to slow down, please? Thank you.
Mr. Prosecutor, would you slow down?
Okay, I do it
The
again.
interpreters again. Yes, please. Mr. Kenyatta, please.
Madam President, I have not financed Mungiki activities. Madam President, I am not aware of any association of the Mungiki with the Party of National Unity involving post-election violence or otherwise. Madam President, I am not aware, and neither, and this one I can actually state as a fact, that KANU does not have any links with Mungiki and was not involved in any way with Mungiki in the 2007 elections, either before the elections, during the elections, or after the elections. That, Madam President, is what I know.
Mr. Kenyatta, do you think that Mungiki, for some reason, because they one day decide to support you and then you reject it, or for other reasons, consider you a traitor, and that's why some of the members of the Mungiki are making a statement against you, involving you in the crimes?
Madam President, save for the clip that my defense showed of them burning my effigy and calling me a betrayer of what they believe in, I have no link, no association with Mungiki. I have no idea why they would give false witness against myself, save for what they did with my defense counsel, which I don't wish to repeat, but it is quite clear and put quite clearly by my defense counsel what those witnesses did or tried to do to my defense counsel. So those are the only reasons I can give that those particular individuals, whether they are Mungiki or not, were doing so in an attempt to extort money.
Just to elaborate on what you answered, because can you correct Mr. K, because I think you say the video was from 2000, but in the scans it say 2008, but I believe you say it's 2000, is correct?
The burning of the effigy was in August 2000.
Yes, that's what I heard.
Is my learned friend.
Thank you so much, because that's what you heard, but the transcript say 2008. So that is for me, that's why I like to clarify this last point, Mr. Kenyatta, because the Mungiki in 2000 considered that you betrayed and were attacking. So, however, just 2 years later, they were trying to support you. Even you rejected, as you say, unsolicited assistance. How they can move from this attack to support you? Can you explain? Is there any reason to explain this change?
Madam President, I do not know. But there is one thing I can say, and this is my perception, and I cannot say whether it is fact or not fact. But definitely, there was, especially, the biggest victims of the Mungiki menace in Kenya has actually been the Kikuyu community itself, through extortion, through killings, and etc. So I can only assume that those who were pushing for linking Mungiki with me were doing so to cost me votes in 2007 from the Central Kenya region, because undoubtedly, like I said, the people who have been the biggest victims of the Mungiki menace in Kenya are actually the people of Central Kenya, and mainly the Kikuyu.
No further question, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ocampo. Now, Mr. Anya, probably you're going to request authorization to ask questions.
Yes, indeed, Madam President. With leave of Your Honors,
yes,
I would like to ask questions.
you're going to ask questions regarding the interests of victims being affected.
Yes, Madam President.
Pursuant to Article 68.3, would you very shortly substantiate, very shortly, your request?
I will. Madam President, in addition to the evidence given by the witness today, yesterday during the presentation of the defense team for Mr. Kenyatta, it was elicited that he undertook certain actions of generosity, if you will, towards victims of the post-election violence. There was an article from the Kenyan Times referred to, which indicated he made a visit to IDPs. And I wish to ask him a few questions about that.
Just a moment. Mr. Anya, of course you have the floor, but with the request of the chamber that we see the direct link to the victims up until 6 o'clock. Please, the floor is over to you.
Madam President, I will try to hurry up. I just need to set up for a moment. Yes, I am fine. Good evening, Mr. Kenyatta.
Good evening.
I will be asking you a few questions about the victims in this case. I will try to be brief, and if I say something you do not understand, please ask me to repeat myself. You follow me?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you know how many victims are participants in this case?
As in direct participants, what I know is if we're talking about the victims of the post-election violence, then we're talking about approximately 600,000 Kenyans. But I'm not 100% sure whether that's what you're asking.
Very well. I appreciate the distinction. Do you know, with reference to this case, the case in which you've been named as a suspect, how many victims are engaged in the proceedings, that is, who have been accepted by the court to participate?
Madam President, I'm not sure of the exact number, no.
Do you have some idea of the ethnic configuration of the victims or composition of the victims in this case?
No, again, Madam President, I don't have those numbers with me, no.
Have you read documents disclosed to your legal team in this case?
Madam President, I've not seen documents directly myself, but my counsel has gone through those documents, Madam President.
Have you looked at the document containing the charges against you in this case?
Yes, I have.
Have you made note of references in that document to particular ethnic groups as the victims in this case?
Yes, I have.
The victims in this case, to your knowledge, are from which ethnic groups predominantly?
Madam President, based on the representations that have been made since the case started, and from the documents that have been brought to also my attention, they are mainly from the Luo community, and we have also heard of members of the Luya community and members of the Kalenjin community.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyatta. And you're also aware that there is a second case involving Kenya pending before the court, yes?
Yes, I am, Madam President.
Do you know anything about the ethnic composition of the victims in that case?
Again, Madam President, President, I have not seen those documents.
I am not asking you if you've seen documents. I asked the question if you know from any source, newspapers, televisions, do you know anything about the ethnic composition of the victims in that case?
Madam President, I have not seen anything, but I can only possibly assume that they would largely be from the Kikuyu, the Kisii, the Bukusu ethnic communities who are, I would just assume. That is an assumption, not from knowledge.
From where does your assumption come? What sources form the basis for your assumption?
The basis of my assumption is because they formed the bulk of the victims of the post-election violence.
Are you aware that this case, as far as the victims are concerned, concerns Naivasha and Nakuru?
Yes, I am aware, Your Honors.
You told us that you were local government minister. I believe you said you took office on the 10th of January 2008. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Your Honors, that is fair to say.
And you stayed in office until April 2008, true?
I was in that office until the Grand Coalition government was formed, around April, I would, yeah.
Of what year?
April of 2008.
Now, during that period of time, January through April 2008, as Minister of Local Government, did you make any trips to the Rift Valley province?
Yes, I did.
And what were the purpose or purposes of those trips?
During that particular time, I did visit a number of IDP camps. I visited an area in Burn Forest. I visited Nakuru. I visited Trans Nzoia, as well as other parts in the country. But in specific reference to Rift Valley, those were the areas.
Did you visit Naivasha?
I did not visit Naivasha.
Did you visit anywhere in Nyanza province?
I didn't visit Nyanza province.
Did you visit the Western province?
Western province towards the side of Trans Nzoia, yes, I did.
The Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga, is from which province?
The Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya is from Nairobi province.
And in which province in Kenya is his support base from?
The Prime Minister's support base, according to him, is the Kenyan nation.
I'm not
all
asking...
provinces.
I apologize for interrupting. I am not asking what Mr. Odinga's claimed support base is. I am asking you what you know as his support base. Mr. Kenyatta, you yourself, what do you know about the support base of Raila Odinga? What provinces form his constituents?
If I were to go by the last elections, that would be parts of Northeastern, the coast, Nairobi, Rift Valley, Nyanza, Western, that if I was to go as by the latest polls, Madam President.
What ethnic groups or ethnic group in Kenya are his main constituents, if you know?
What ethnic groups are his main constituents? If I was to take his Kibera constituency, Madam President, the composition in Kibera is Kikuyu, Luo, Nubian, Somali. They would be the bulk in his constituency.
That is in relation to Kibera. To your knowledge, are the Luos the ethnic group, the Luos, supporters of Raila Odinga?
I would say that the Luos do support Raila Odinga.
Thank you. When you went to visit Nakuru, you said you visited IDPs. Did you visit any IDPs that were of the Luo ethnic group?
Madam President, when I visited IDP camps, I was not visiting any particular community. I was visiting the IDP camps, and many had people from who were displaced. I was visiting camps. I was not visiting ethnic communities.
We appreciate that. We know you were visiting camps, not necessarily ethnic communities. But I go back to my question, and let me cut to the chase. Were some of those that you met at the camps, were they Luos?
Madam President, from the videos that you have seen, the people we visited in Tigoni were largely Luos and Luyas. The people that we visited in Kikuyu, who we had gone to help, were again largely Luo and Luya and some Kalenjin. So, Madam President, I visited places where there were displaced people, and that's what I did.
What was the name of the IDP camp in Nakuru you visited, if you know?
Madam President, I can't recall the name of the camp, but I visited a camp in Nakuru. That I did. But the name I don't have offhand.
What month was this and what year?
Madam President, it was during that particular period. But since then, I've also visited a number of camps, especially when we have had the resettlement exercises and etc. going on in the country.
The particular period you are referring to, is it during your tenure as local government minister?
Madam President, if we're talking about the period between January and April, I was Minister of Local Government.
That's not my question. I'm trying to figure out what month you went to the IDP camps in Nakuru. Was it during your tenure as local government minister?
If the period we're referring to is between January and April, yes, I was Minister of Local Government.
And is that when you went to the camps?
I have been to the camps, yes, as Minister of Local Government. I've been to camps as Minister of Trade, and I've been to camps as Minister of Finance. So I have visited the IDP camps throughout the period.
And the camp or camps you went to in Nakuru, how many persons were housed there, if you know?
Madam President, I wouldn't have the numbers offhand, but there were many thousands.
Was it called the Showguard Camp? Showground Camp?
Madam President, there were many camps, like I'm saying, in and around Nakuru. There were not just one, so I don't know which. The name would not be familiar.
Madam President, I see the time. I still have questions to ask of the witness.
How much time do you need, Mr. Anya?
This is an important witness, and with leave of your honors, I would ask for at least 20 minutes.
20 is too much. The chamber, we have discussed this. The chamber would give you 10 minutes more. Do you think that you can go to the point?
Perhaps 15, if it please the court.
Yes,
Thank
my
you.
colleagues are. So let us make a break, and thereafter, Mr. Anya, you will proceed. The hearing is adjourned, and we shall resume the hearing at 6:30.